Who are the Sith? Sith funeral procession for Mark Aragnos. The standard for the 11th nome is topped by a set animal, and the name of the main town, Shtp, means. The pig Set is pacified, and Set was worshipped in his form, as a fish in the capital of the 19th nome. Set was the black boar who swallowed the moon each month, obscuring its light. The Greeks associated Set with Typhon, the largest monster ever born. Typhon was the son of the earth and Tartarus, the place of torture in Hades, and thoroughly evil. Both were storm gods associated with the color red and with pigs, whose meat was considered to be unclean by many cultures including the Egyptians. However, unlike Typhon, Set had a protective role, and even in his negative aspects the Egyptians understood his place in the world. He was dangerous and unpredictable, but could be a powerful friend. During the Ptolemaic period, a temple to both Horus and Sobek, who was often associated with Set, as both took the form of a crocodile, was built south of Nut and named Ombos, now known as Ombos, after the god of the ancient city, Set. Copyright J. Hill 2010 Ancient Egypt Online Set. Here are a few images of warthogs. And here are some images of members of the Sith species, the official ones ostensibly being property of Disney, the others being property of their individual owners. You might consider the physical similarities between members of the Sith species and both actual examples of African pigs and also reference to the color red, which is associated with Set coincidental, but do not raise any objections to someone calling you an idiot if you do. And here's the way in which Sith is defined by Wikipedia. The Sith Order was a sect of Force sensitives, who utilized the dark side of the Force. The term Sith originally referred to a species of aliens native to the planets Korriban and Ziost, who were later enslaved and ruled by exiled Dark Jedi from the Galactic Republic. These Dark Jedi had once been members of the Jedi Order, a monastic Force religion dedicated to peace through the use of the light side of the Force. The Dark Jedi, who refused to rely exclusively on the light side, challenged the Jedi by giving into the dark side, which started the 100-year darkness. However, they had been defeated and subsequently exiled from known space, which led to their discovery of the Sith species. Following centuries of interbreeding and mixing of cultures between the aliens and the exiles, the Sith would no longer be identified by their race, but by their dedication to the ancient Sith philosophy. This religious order would survive in many different incarnations throughout galactic history. The rise of a new leader, or Dark Lord, would often cause drastic reorganizations in the cult. However, the Sith would always be characterized by their lust for power and their desire to destroy the Jedi Order. The Sith were the most infamous of all dark side religions, and the members of the cult were often seen as the pinnacle of power within the dark side. Throughout their long history, the Sith commanded several empires, and initiated many galactic wars. With such great influence, the Sith religion inspired many cults that weren't technically part of the Sith Order, nor did they consist of actual Sith. Instead, They were founded and made up of Sith devotees and other Force sensitives dedicated to prolonging the teachings and the memory of the Sith. Such cults included the Nadists, the Disciples of Ragnos, and the Krath. From the Wikipedia article, Common Sith. Common Sith was a writing system that stemmed from early hieroglyphics utilized by the Sith. It was developed over the centuries by Sith scribes, who wished to create several less complicated scripts from their hieroglyphic predecessor. While some supplemented the hieroglyphic writings to create a style for ecclesiastical uses, others such as the Common Sith script supplanted it in more mundane settings. Following the discovery of King Utda's Sith Empire by the Dark Jedi, the Sith began using Common Sith not only to write their own language, but also Galactic Basic Standard. Darth Vader had Common Sith writing on his armor's chest control panel in the final years of his life. For unknown reasons, the access code allowed Zayn Shin to bypass the security droid guarding the Imperial Palace's residential wing in 16 ABY was in Common Sith. The letters on Darth Vader's control box, which became known as Common Sith, are based on Hebrew letters. Many of the letters are modified or flipped upside down on his control box. The letters on the control box are somewhat different between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. The letters can also be seen on a speeder bike prop in the Star Wars The Magic of Myth exhibition. From the Wikipedia article, Sith language, Sith, or the Sith language, was the native language of the people of Ziost and Korriban. It was adopted as the mystical language of the Sith Order after the Dark Jedi exiles enslaved the Sith species. Sith was an Uggaludi native language, in which words or even phrases were made up of linear sequences of distinct meaningful units. Despite the preeminence of the Galactic Basic Standard, the Sith language remained in use up until the post-Imperial period. To the lost tribe of Sith, an order founded on the remote planet Kesh, the Sith language was known as the Old Tongue. Originally, this language was only spoken by the Sith, a species of red-shine humanoids from the Stygian caldera. It was later expanded upon and evolved when the second generation of Dark Jedi split from the Jedi Order in 7000 BBY, just after the Battle of Korbos, and enslaved the natives of Korriban. The Sith language became a symbol of the newly created Sith Order, a powerful sect of dark side adepts. This was made easier through the creation of devices known as translation talismans. Such artifacts, initially designed and created by the Jedi exiles, who sought to learn of the Sith's secrets, allowed their wearer to read the Sith language, as if it were their own mother tongue. The Code of the Sith, originally penned in Basic by the exile Surzes Sin and inspired by the lifestyle of the Sith purebloods, was also translated in Sith language as Gotsai. Around 5000 BBY, the Sith dreadnought Omen was forced to crash land on the remote planet Kesh. The Maroon Sith were never able to return to space, so they settled amongst the native Kyrie, and founded the lost tribe of the Sith. This allowed the Sith language to expand far from its cradle. In this marginal Sith colony, the language became known as the Old Tongue. Even after the majority of Sith were of other species than the Sith pureblood, the language was preserved in holocrons, temples, and tombs. However, outside of the dark side circles, very few scholars knew how to decipher this language, and even fewer could pronounce its complex word structures. Much later, in the 11th century before the Battle of Yavin, the human Darth Bane became familiar with the tongue of the ancient Sith during his studies at the Academy of Korriban, unlike most of his fellow students. Bane would seek the wisdom of masters long dead in leather-bound volumes covered with blood-red ink. The Sith language was originally written in complex hieroglyphics. Over the centuries, Sith scribes wished to develop less complicated scripts. This resulted in the creation of two different scripts. The first one, known as Common Sith, was used for mundane, everyday use, while the other, High Sith, was for ecclesiastical use. A third writing system known as the Kitty was also used for incantation scrolls. The latter consisted of 37 runes, and was suitable for both calligraphy and epigraphy. Aleph, a letter in the Common Sith alphabet, and also a letter of the Hebrew Aleph. Beit Aleph, a letter in the Common Sith alphabet, also a letter of the Hebrew Aleph. Beit Kaf, a letter in the Common Sith alphabet, also a letter of the Hebrew Aleph. Lamed, a letter in the Common Sith alphabet, also a letter of the Hebrew Aleph. Beit Nun, Me, also a letter of the Hebrew Aleph. Beit Sam, Hek, a letter in the Common Sith alphabet, also a letter of the Hebrew Aleph. Beit Shin, a letter in the Common Sith alphabet, also a letter of the Hebrew Aleph. Beit Zayin, a letter in the Common Sith alphabet, also a letter of the Hebrew Aleph. Beit. So, what am I saying with this video? Am I claiming that the ancient Israelites were actually savage persons obsessed with war and destruction, which is the portrayal of the Sith species? Am I claiming that the theists who have come since claiming to be descended in ideology, if not heredity, from the ancient Israelites are actually wicked and savage as well? Of course not, and quite the opposite. I am conveying the fact, for which I have provided plenty of evidence elsewhere, that it is the intent of those responsible for the Star Wars mythology to horrendously slander and defame the ancient Israelites and all theists since them, but in a fictionalized, space alien populated galaxy far, far away context, which allows them to get away with it legally. Though I believe that Star Wars serves as evidence for those who have reasoning ability that the entire supposed conflict between secret societies and the Vatican itself, in the form of the specific Sith Palpatine and Vader, is a deception, the fact of the matter is that the core members of left-hand path ideologies do indeed love to give theism a bad name.